Welcome to Bank Tellers, folks, where we speak to senior leaders from banks around the world, and we have a special one today. My name is Zach Anderson Pettit, VP of FinTech Strategy at Money 2020. I don't spend much time reading cue cards, but I'm trying to do my job well, so we're going to stick to this for 1 second. And this episode, we're joined by Kelly Buchanan, and her title is long enough that I have to have my phone open. So, one moment here, EVP and Divisional CIO, which in and of itself is badass. Enterprise payments and wholesale technology, which we will make you define in a little bit. But that being said, welcome, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's great to have you here. So briefly, and we can keep it brief or not brief, we can have some fun. Tell us about yourself. How did you get to Truist? And then we'll talk about Truist.
Wow. So I've always grown up kind of in the payments world. Mm-hmm. So I spent 20 years at MasterCard prior to coming to Truist in a lot of different areas, from authorization processing to commercial cards to some of their M&A activity. Mm-hmm. And after 20 years there, it was really like, I really want to do something different. I want to challenge myself. So Truist had just finished kind of some of the merger between SunTrust and BBT. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a really great kind of organization to come to take kind of some of the skill sets I have from the M&A space, because I knew that after you first cut over from a merger, you kind of feel like you're done, but that's when the real work starts. Right. So I just really wanted to be a part of that journey.
The overlap of that, of being a startup, right? And you raise that first round or you raise that Series B, and then it's that moment in the news and everybody perceives it as success, but then the real work starts, to your point.
Yes.
It seems like there's a significant overlap there in terms of just M&A.
There is. There really is. And it's not only where it's like, we brought together clients, we brought together teammates, we brought together technology. And, now you're kind of like, okay, so how does this all work together? And then you're also driving a whole new culture for our teammates and what we're offering to clients. So I think that a lot of that, and that's where my M&A background is, it's more on the integration. It's not on the kind of buy side.
You don't do the contracts, you do the real work?
I do the real work. I always say, what is it? They say I don't do the engagements, I do the actual marriage of how do we make this work together?
I like it. Yeah, you have the hard conversations and do the
100%.
Build the structure.
But I like that because it's really, really cool to see it transform and to see those things start to kind of pop off.
I have to say, this is not something I was expecting to say, and we just met. Knowing MasterCard, I can see how you were there for 20 years, but I'm shocked you were there for 20 years.
Well, I'm going to age myself here for a minute. I started when they were privately held.
Oh, okay. So there's been there's some versions of MasterCard that you were there through then.
Yeah, and
okay.
I think it's interesting because I always felt like I was working at a few different companies, right?
Yeah.
So we were privately held, then we went public. Then, we were a technology company. Mm-hmm. And then when we started getting into M&A, I actually lived in Australia for about a year on one of the M&As and came back. Then I finished my career there in London when when MasterCard bought VocalLink and Nets, and really kind of thinking differently about not just cards, but really that multi-rail strategy.
Were those the only two other countries you lived in while you were at MasterCard?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're just going to set the stage there. One more question, though. So when you got to Truist, is it fair to say that it was almost like the starting line of Truist? Like that was kind of when Truist was formed based on what you described before, and it's kind of not a blank slate, obviously, but you were stepping in at that moment, blank-ish slate.
100%. The bank merger had been done sooner. I came right when we had the technology cutover.
Gotcha.
So for me, being in
the fun part,
right. So maybe in the technology space, that really was when it started, right? Mm-hmm. Where it was we were all on one system, and now it was okay, so how do we go from here? Both from how do we scale some of our applications? Where do we want to be adding new client value and driving pieces of innovation? But then also what is Truist now as a culture, as a company, and how do we engage our teammates along that way?
So what is Truist now?
I think Truist is, one of the things I really love about Truist is their purpose and mission statements, right? If you've heard Bill Rogers on our earnings call, he starts everything with purpose and about the fact that, we're building better lives and communities. Yeah. And I think that that's where Truist kind of has some of their secret sauce there, which is really being a caring bank. And you see that not only in how we try to show up for our clients. We're seeing this right now in North Carolina, where I live, has been hit really hard by the hurricanes, and we are really out there in the community. But it's also the care internally. Yeah. Right. And, something I really respected when I had worked at MasterCard for a long time in their culture. And I feel like and they're kind of doing well by doing good. Yeah. And you feel that a lot within Truist, and the fact that our teammates really did rise up and come together. And it's really evident through what they did during that merger. That merger was done in the technical cutover during COVID as well.
That is the craziest thing to me of the whole thing. Like we have to keep these kind of short, and I want to ask so much, like all my questions actually are about how you got onto one core, or were there multi-cores, or like, I cannot imagine what that whole experience was like. And knowing what a core shift is like, thinking what that and becoming the 9th largest bank and it just feels heavy, I guess.
It was heavy, and the perseverance of our teammates during that was really kind of what made it, and the care that they gave to each other and our clients.
Yeah. So, as I just mentioned, 9th largest bank. You kind of just described Truist as a community bank, though. Can you square that circle, or from your perspective, is that actually how large banks should work?
Well, I think, we are a super regional bank, and I think that there is definitely some of that, I think, care and community, the way that we think and the way that we approach it, but we are one of the 9th largest bank, and we are driving everything across the board. Right now in my space, thinking about payments and wholesale, really driving those clients. If you've listened to our last earnings call, a lot of the focus was on some of our CIB, corporate investment banking. So we're definitely not a community bank, but we definitely have those kind of maybe values of where we came from.
So part of your title, Wholesale, as you alluded to, one of the things we want to do with bank tellers is go down the deep, nerdy rabbit holes, but also define some of the things that if you're just getting into fintech or getting into banking, what does that mean? So I think wholesale is one of those things that people don't always understand, similar to some of the acronyms. But what is wholesale? What is that when you say that?
It's a great question, because when I first showed up at Truist, not being at a bank, I was like, what are we talking about? What is wholesale?
Google this for me.
Right. Yeah. And really wholesale, as you think about it from our commercial clients, right? So you think about, we have, when we talk about I'm a divisional CIO, I have everything that's not retail, right? I have a peer that has really the retail consumer side of the house that looks at branches and your typical consumer. Where we're looking at from the wholesale side of the bank is really the commercial bank. So it's things like technology that runs our wealth products, our corporate investment products, our commercial lending products.
So when you're thinking about that side of the world, how do you think about innovation inside of that? It feels like there's a lot of things happening very quickly. I'm curious, technologies that you're specifically focused on? It seems like there's a lot of directions you could go there. Where are you spending most of your brain space right now, I guess, in terms of innovation?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things. One is really operational kind of efficiencies and a lot of that. If you think about things
the
like...
unsexy stuff?
Look, I find it sexy too.
Okay, I shouldn't have said that.
Working in critical systems, I think one of my pet peeves sometimes is when people talk about innovation or these R&D, it's always like this, you can quickly get into technology looking for a problem where, I run on one hand, I run embedded finance and real-time payments, which is like innovation, what people talk about. I also have wires and ACH, and those things need just as much innovation.
Maybe
right?
more.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
But when we talk about innovation is just these things, then you have a whole set of teammates and a whole set of applications that feel like, well, I'm not innovation. I don't have to worry about that. Right. And innovation can look like automating processes. It can look like stuff that feels unsexy, but is so incredibly important.
100%.
So if you think about some of the things that we're working on, embedded finance is a big one, really meeting clients where they are, especially in our commercial banking side. And then also things, a lot of the regulations that's coming down from, Basel III, you've got, ISO, and, how do we do those in a way where we're looking at the best technology for that and setting us up for the long term?
I'm curious how you how do you go about understanding a regulation, as you're alluding to, and then like fitting the technology inside of it? And I know that's a super broad question. You can take it whatever direction you want, but like there's just so much. It feels to me, sitting here at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, where we are actually recording, we've kind of turned into an AI and policy show.
Yes.
This year, like big time. Like I was on our main stage this morning. I introduced one session that was actually about fintech. The rest of it was AI and policy. So it just feels like we're like losing sight of the key stuff that you're talking, like the ACH, the key, like escheatment is something maybe we should be talking about that nobody actually knows about. What do you think? Terribly phrased question.
I think on the policy side, though, it is really interesting, and I think it's about not being short-sighted, just like any innovation, right? Of saying like a lot of this is around how do we manage data, how do we report on our data, and really kind of taking that step back, because what we can quickly do is say like, okay, so I can solve for this trade regulation, or I can solve for this little pieces with this onesie twosies. But we have to take a step back and understand the full landscape on kind of what. On each of these business lines, what is all of the regulation, and then how do we really get a strategy around that as opposed to whack-a-mole? And that's when you're really going to, I think, kind of see more of that innovation, and then also understanding, just like anything, of what do we need to be doing internally? What are the things that differentiate or allow us to have that broader strategy and more of control, versus where can we be looking here at some of these fintech partners that can really do some of that for us?
I love that. Let's transition into your leadership and kind of like future vision of Kelly. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received, and how has it shaped your career?
I think the best piece of advice was, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? I think it was really, being a female in technology, a younger female coming up in technology, it's really easy to kind of be like, well, maybe it's not my time, and maybe that's not right for me, and or maybe I'll wait. Right, I'll wait till I've matured enough to X, Y, or Z, and it really is about putting yourself out there. I've started taking thoughtful risks in my career, and a lot of times people would say like, how do you get these opportunities to move abroad or to do this? And it's like, I asked for it. I raised my hand, right? Now you got to execute, and you got to have that brand of delivery behind you. But I think it's really kind of going after what I want, and then. It's okay to kind of go after something and say, well, that didn't work, but I learned something new, and now I'm smarter for my next move.
So taking a step back, as you were alluding to earlier, it sounds like a lot of, imposter syndrome at the end of the day, right? I'm curious, we were talking before we got on camera about the fact that you got an MBA from SLU. Yes. Wonderful things to say about SLU from this side. Nothing negative about SLU. My question is more about MBA. Do you feel like today you needed that MBA?
I get asked this a lot by new hires all the time. What I say is, if I were to do it over again, or the advice that I give to younger talent is, I think I did it to check a box back in the day because you felt like you had to have an MBA or to be an executive manager. I think that our education system has changed so much, and like if you're going to go back to school and do that, like. Get meaningful about it, right? Go back for your cybersecurity certification or cybersecurity emphasis.
Get specific.
Get specific. Yeah. We didn't have that,
right.
When I was kind of getting my education. So don't do it to check the box. Like get specific and get something that you feel like is going to pivot, like really kind of catapult your career.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm glad I picked up on that correctly. If you had to pick one priority for your company or yourself in the next 12 months, what would it be?
I think it's probably some of the same advice for myself and my company, which is really think about what our priorities are and really kind of get serious about that and be relentless on that priority. And that can be really hard on our day lives, and at work, of just like, there's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of great technology, right? And so a lot of times it's not like you're saying like, here's two bad ideas and one good one, pick it. It's what are the consequences of me spending my time at work versus not being home for my family? What are the consequences of me not getting that workout in? And how's it going to make me feel? And it's the same way at work of like, we have to decide what our priorities are for our business and for our clients. And we've got to relentlessly go after that. And that means saying no to some probably good ideas.
Yeah. Across the board, I feel like you're a lot of your answers are like, we're kind of at a fork in the road in fintech, and like kind of at a fork in the road in banking. And like, this is a moment to take a step back, take stock, take a breath.
Look, I mean, I think I love the payments and the fintech area. So I think, every year you could probably maybe say that, but I do think that it's getting more and more serious. But the questions are different. Like, it's a real, I mean, I'm a payment geek. Like, I think it's a really cool space to be in, and you're kind of weighing kind of what we're doing with our clients. You're weighing all of this innovation that's really like the innovation coming at us will outpace our ability to bring it in.
Oh yeah.
So like, how do we look at that?
And the regulation and all of it.
And then you add the regulation, which on some hand, like all regulation isn't bad. Some of this regulations that's coming out will, the U.S. is behind on some of this regulation, and it will open up new things for us.
Also good pun.
But it's a pain in the butt
Yeah.
for us to have to prioritize that over other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, the forcefulness, I will say, of 1033 and some other things is interesting. Let's transition to the next one because, compliance. What advice would you give to someone aspiring to be in your position one day? I guess maybe you kind of already gave it a little bit, but I'm curious if you have any other thoughts.
My biggest thing would be like, keep doing something different and challenging yourself. When I take over a new team and someone says like, well, I've been working here for 10 years and like, it's my time. And I'm like, that's not always how it works. Like, I've been able to get to where I am because, you asked before, how did you stay at MasterCard for 20 years? I moved around like every 2 years. I saw all the different areas that it had to offer. And that's what I feel like you have to do. And then you got to put yourself out there. Like, you got to fail at something. Some of the most challenging year of my career, which was most challenging career and professional, I would not wish to do it again, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because I learned so much about myself.
Can you tell us about it?
So we had a big implementation.
This is at Truist or at MasterCard?
MasterCard.
Okay.
It went really, really bad.
Okay.
And I kind of was like the first time where you really had that like going out to clients. They were angry. How do we talk to them about that? How do we rebuild confidence, not only internally, but externally? And how did I rebuild a team to get us there? And it was really, really difficult, I think. And being a type A personality, you take all that on. You take it on
yourself, yeah. Yeah, you take that personal responsibility.
I was able to learn, one, how to kind of regulate my own self during that time. Because look, in technology, something's always wrong.
And someone's always on to tell you that something's always wrong.
No one calls me and says like, hey, thanks for keeping payments up today.
Right, at 7 p.m. Hey, by the way, thank you. Yeah.
They call me to tell me what they're mad about.
Yeah.
And I think so I learned a lot about myself, but I also learned a lot about how to build that confidence and how to rebound.
Any advice you'd give in terms of that? I mean, you kind of alluded to the gym earlier. Like, I'm curious if you found any kind of key habits through that year, because I will say I've had those years, and for me, the gym is the answer. So I'm curious your perspective.
The gym is a big one for me. I think it's about finding, how can you ground yourself, right? Because we work more than we do anything else. At least I do.
I'm chilling, so I don't.
And so it's easy to just like, it becomes everything, and you can't get off the wheel to kind of like refocus. And if you don't get off the wheel, you're not making the best decisions for your team and for your business. So, how are you going to take a step back? I also did a lot of, at the time was working on a Friends of Kid with Cancer board, and being able to take a step out of my work life and seeing some other part of life, and then kind of rebalancing of like, okay, like I used to sometimes when things were really rough at work, start meetings with, nobody dies today. It's like, let's take that pressure off ourselves and let's go from here.
Yeah. Was any again? How am I going to phrase this? Do you take vacations? I guess that's what
I do take vacations. So there's a word for it. I forgot what it is, but it's someone who always has to have a vacation planned.
Oh, you're one of those.
100%.
Okay, I know y'all.
I always have to have something. Yes. I always have to have something to look forward to. Always that thing of like, okay, I will, here's what it is. And I really do. Like, I have an awesome team, and, they are really great about like when I'm out too. And they're like, be out. We got you.
I love that. I wasn't planning to ask that, but here we are. What's the first app you check in the morning?
I check my Bible app in the morning.
I love that. What's the second app you check in the morning?
Second app in the morning, probably my Outlook.
Okay. Yep. I was wondering. I was going to keep going until you got to email. It was pretty much what we were doing.
It was
there.
probably email next, unfortunately. It's like, as much as I would love to say it was like my meditation app after that, it's definitely email.
I mean, you can lie to me if you want. It's fine. Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, neither.
See, we talk about the gym and then we go to that, and it's
Anti-soda. So you know that soda is worse. I think soda is worse for you than smoking.
I knew we were going to get into the food blog. Here we are.
It's horrible for you.
Let's go down the rabbit hole if you need to. Or is that all you needed to say?
No, that's it. I will tell you, if you talk to people at work, I shame everyone that walks into my meeting with a soda.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
I kind of love that. I absolutely love that, actually. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but if you had to describe your leadership style in 3 words.
I would say I'm transformative. I would say I am direct.
Pick up on that.
And then I would say fun. I
too.
really believe, like, I have things we called forced fun in my team. It's like with my kids too. Like, we will all sit here. We are going to have a good time.
Or I'm turning this house around.
Again, I'm at work more than I am anywhere else, and I'm going to have fun while I'm doing it. And I think it's especially important when you're talking about critical systems, again, to like keep people engaged. Happy people do better work.
Seems like you love your job.
I do love my job.
That's not all that consistent in our industry, and that makes me really happy.
Yeah, well, thank you. I love payments. I'm a dork with it. You know, I'm the first person when we're at I remember when like Tap Pay Pass first came out, and no one really knew at the stadiums. They came out in the stadiums, and no one knew how to use them. And we would go to the stadiums, and I would be like, you know, I want to use PayPass, and they'd be like, we don't do that. I'm like, no, you can.
You do.
Let me. And my husband would be like, could you just get a drink and let's go? And I'm like, no, like, let's walk you through this. I could call someone.
You're jumping behind the scene. You're like, just log in here. Just carry the. That's
the minute
hilarious.
Amazon came out, the Whole Foods came out with the palms, I'm immediately researching the technology. Like, I love it.
You were on the bleeding edge. Okay, I get it. Okay, so closing question. You have the global ecosystem of money tuning into this podcast. What's one thing you'd like to impart to the listeners?
Oh, wow.
I know, heavy. It can be inspiration. It can be don't drink that soda.
Don't drink the soda.
There you go.
It's a good question. I think it's about maybe just, I think it's about staying open-minded and really, really focusing on kind of where do we want to go and how do we need to get there. I think there's a lot of room for banks and fintechs and the private and public community to come together on some of this stuff, and I think it will take all of us. I have loved to see where we used to be competitors and now we're partners. And I think that's how things are really going to move the needle. I think we need more collaboration across regulators and technology and banks. We need more collaboration across private and public communities to actually make the real changes we want.
Love it. Could not agree more. Wonderful place to end. Thank you so much, Kelly.
No, thank you. Really appreciate it.